How do you spend your free time in medical school?
A lot of crying.
What drew you to like Vegas of all places? Like, what was the...
Mostly the strippers and the cocaine.
Cocaine and hookers, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another AMA. I'm joined by Nafal and Nuban. These are two buddies of mine that I actually met through my newest YouTube channel, Jubbal and Cars, a channel all about cars and driving. And they're joining me here in Vegas for some track day shenanigans.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's been a wild weekend. So, we requested questions from you on Instagram for this AMA, and we're going to go through some of those questions. And these two are both medical students. They're both third years, right?
Yeah, we're both third years.
So both third years, and they're going to ask possibly some additional questions that maybe didn't come up in the Instagram poll. So, starting off, actually, let's discuss this track day, because this was eventful.
So who wants to start first?
I think you had the most trauma, so I think you should really detail how your experience was. Especially this is like your first like real meaty track day, so I want you to like kind of go over in detail. And
so for those who don't know, a track day is you go to the racetrack and you bring your own car, and you get maybe 20-30 minutes where you got to go around, do laps. And you tend to push your car pretty hard. You're not technically supposed to be racing other people. You can race against the clock by yourself, but you're not doing wheel-to-wheel racing with other people. If someone's going faster than you, let them pass. And it's a day to like work on your skill and have fun and be safe, right?
Yeah, so emphasis on the last part about being safe. Our beloved friend here, Kevin, I don't think he has the word safe anywhere in his vocabulary because,
We'll agree to disagree because I think nothing bad happened today at all.
I mean, we didn't go off track. I have all my limbs, right? We didn't get injured, but let's just say at one point I didn't realize.
Here's the thing. Nuban was riding passenger with me. I've been doing track days for a few years now, and those who follow me on Jubbal and Cars will know. Nuban, this was your third track day ever?
Yeah, my third. Yeah.
So a little bit newer to the sport, and there's kind of like you don't go zero, you don't start at 100, you kind of start easing in.
Right.
And
right.
I tend to go a little bit more intense because I've been doing it for a longer period of time. So both Nafal and Nuban wanted to ride passenger with me. I was instructing a student for most of the day, but then towards the end of the day, I said, "Hey guys, I have an opening now if you guys want to ride along." And Nuban rode passenger, and that's where the story begins.
Yeah, so I signed up for the track day, and I had my own instructor in my own session. So I'm in the beginner group, and I drove my car with the beginning level instructor. He gave me pointers and told me, drive like this, drive like this. So that was great. I had a good time. I learned a lot about like where my skills are, where my deficiencies are, what I can improve on next time. And then after my last session out, I said, "Hey Kevin, like let me ride along with you." And then my brother here was giving us a nice little smirk, indicating that I was going to be in for some kind of surprise. And what happened was, how do I describe this? What did I say earlier? That I didn't know at what point we were driving, at what point we were flying. So
I think at one point you said you were floating.
Yeah, so I felt like Kevin drives so fast that it doesn't even feel like you're driving, like your tires are contacting the road. It feels like you were just gliding on the surface, just barely hovering on the road. Because the way I drove is there's a turn, there's a straight, you brake, then you accelerate, right? There's time in between each turn. The way you drove was there are no straights, there are only turns and hard braking zones and life and death decisions where if you just didn't press the brakes in time by 1 millisecond, we probably would have crashed.
We weren't that close. I had more of a buffer, but poor Nuban here was traumatized, so much so that when we got back from the track, down to the paddock, things are nice and calm. I guess the stress and all the adrenaline and stuff kind of subsided, and you needed like an hour in your car just to decompress.
Yeah, I needed a long time to just like sit there and just not want to like throw up, because the entire time, because you told me like, when I'm driving, like don't say anything, don't talk, like it'll like get me out of my zone, something, and like
So what? Yeah, actually my apologies for that because what I request is like I want to focus and focus on the driving. So like don't be like, oh hey, nice turn, or like, you know, sometimes people do that, hey, good job, you know, oh haha, that was really cool. But I should have also said that if you feel uncomfortable at any time, like I totally want you to be like, hey man, like I'm feeling a little bit sick, or I'm feeling a little bit nauseous, or like, hey, let's pull in, and like I will 100% slow down, pull in. So that was my bad. I apologize for not, you know, I talked about the first part, like, hey, don't give me encouragement, but I didn't say that, hey, speak up if you're feeling sick.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it has to do with like I haven't experienced G-forces like that in a long time. I think the last time was probably when I went to Six Flags, and went on the Tatsu roller coaster.
You know what's funny is my student's girlfriend also rode passenger with me right before Nepal for 10 minutes. So it was like a 20-minute session. I did 10 minutes with one, 10 minutes with the other. And when I pulled in, I was like, hey, are you feeling okay? Like, are you car sick or anything? And she's like, oh, that was great. I'd want to keep going, but I know you need to take another student out. So, I mean, she was...
Yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, I think it was like...
That was her first time ever on track.
First time ever on track?
As a passenger.
Yeah.
Ever.
I don't know. I think could be some beginners, like, you know, not knowing what to expect. There could be like...
That's fair.
You know, she was excited about it, and just
I do tend to drive pretty hard though,
yeah.
because I am trying to find the limit, trying to improve my skill.
Yeah.
And I think going out there and driving at 7/10 to me isn't as engaging or rewarding, and I want to go 10/10. I want to see what, you know, find the limit of my car every lap, push it as hard as I can, go faster within what I feel is safe.
Yeah.
I know that also being in the passenger seat, it feels like you're going twice as fast as you actually are. Because you're not the one in control.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I actually the way that I felt was that I always had a buffer with the braking zone, because I used to brake really late back in the
later
day. And now I'm like, okay, I want to have more of a buffer.
Yeah.
So an eventful start to the weekend.
An eventful start.
Shall we proceed to some Instagram questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
If you want to end up on this podcast on the rooftop and maybe go to a track day, then follow me on Jubbal and Cars. That's how I met these guys, through my newest car YouTube channel.
Click on his Instagram down below.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to do things like relationships, personal questions, ethnicity. All these things tend to come up pretty frequently. That's going to be towards the end. Timestamps down below. And we're going to start with more medically related things. Then we'll kind of meander and answer some other questions along the way.
What was your favorite part of medical school?
Favorite part of medical school? I am one of the strange ones that actually really enjoyed the preclinical years, more so than the clinical years on average, except for my surgical rotations. So I would say the highlight was definitely plastics, neurosurgery were my two favorites. Orthopedic surgery was cool, but not as cool as those two in my mind during my third year clerkships. And I love the preclinical years because I had so much time and autonomy. I got to hang out with friends, because when you're rotating, you don't really see your med school buddies that much. You might be assigned to a med student who's rotating with you, but for the most part, you're kind of flying solo. And the first 2 years, you get to spend a lot of time with your friends. You get to study. You get to bump some beats in the anatomy lab late at night, study hard. And it's just like, it's a very strong bonding experience. It's very social. And I very much enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a little bit different. I think I have some good memories from preclinical years, but also some good memories from my clinical years. I would say overall, my favorite moment so far has been patient interactions that I've had on my non-surgical rotations, like internal medicine and family medicine so far.
What about you, Nafal?
So for me, I completely started in COVID, so this is a unique situation for me, but I did not like preclinical years because it was just...
Oh, you're super isolated during COVID.
Yeah, so I started off, also I was at home, like I commute to school, so I didn't know any of my classmates. I didn't meet anyone until we went in person halfway towards the end of the first year, so it was very isolated, didn't know anyone. And so I didn't really get any of that shared sort of trauma bonding experience you might get in preclinicals, you know.
Oh, trauma bonding's so good.
It is, it's good. You make the best of friends through trauma bonding, absolutely. But the problem is when you don't have that, you just have trauma, it's really hard to get through that, and it definitely took a beating on me for sure. But I kind of just persevered and had the motivation to just get through to third year, and third year has definitely been probably the best year I've had in my life so far. I still made friends from my class. I do get to like see people on my rotations, and we get to still do our trauma bonding through our clinical practices. And I like doing the clinical rotation because I feel like I'm actually making an impact. I'm actually applying stuff that I learned in the classroom. I'm like actually getting tools to be a doctor.
Yeah, I think the fact that you finally get to apply it in a way that you were meant to, like all this work is finally culminating.
Yes.
I think that's very rewarding.
Absolutely.
I still found that in some specialties it was more rewarding than others.
Oh yeah. But that's going to be dependent on like what you're interested in too, right?
But more surprisingly, it was actually less about the subject matter and more about the people.
Okay.
Because
I agree.
I think that the neurosurgeons at my program were like the coolest, funniest, just they kind of rocked the whole cocky thing in a funny way, not in a serious way. And it was just a blast being with them. There were other rotations where like, I remember on OB-GYN, it was 3 other residents, and they were just kind of talking about how men were terrible and men were an issue, and I was kind of like standing there awkwardly like I can't leave, and I'm like it was a very unpleasant experience. The whole rotation was a lot of that kind of energy, and so it was less even the subject matter, just the people.
So I piggybacking on that, for me, like my favorite rotations so far have been where I've enjoyed being around the people the most, the residents, the attendings, even the other auxiliary staff. Like if everyone is toxic, it doesn't foster a good learning environment. Whereas if you are surrounded by like, people that have, even if they're not like-minded, if they're positive, if a good attitude, good energy, it makes you want to be around them and want to learn and want to grow. So,
Yeah. There is like, I think it's both. I shouldn't say that it's just the people you're with, because obviously the subject matter matters somewhat too. Like I don't like rounding that much, so then hospitalist medicine just wasn't, like internal medicine wasn't the most exciting thing for me.
Right. Yeah.
But plastics and neurosurge and finding your people, but then also enjoying the subject matter, I think is very important.
Yeah. So next question is, how do you spend your free time in medical school?
A lot of crying.
Okay, once you're done with crying, you can't cry all the time.
Yeah. After the tears have dried up.
Well, first of all, there wasn't that much free time to begin with. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Uh-huh.
I guess beyond that, when I did have free time, I tried to make it count. So I was trying new things. Like I did surfing classes a few times at the beginning of med school. I did rock climbing a few times. And then I quickly realized, okay, I don't have enough time to do everything, so I need to focus on what I want to do. Okay, I want to do strength training and I want to do cycling. So those are the 2 that I landed on, and those are the 2 that I still do to this day. So being active was a big part. And then I had a girlfriend starting, I think like end of first year. And, we were trying to do new things. So like we would go camping, or we would go raspberry picking, which was traumatizing because I'm colorblind. And then like the 2 girls got so many raspberries. Like imagine those Chinese takeout boxes. They filled it to the brim, and there was 2 guys. The other guy maybe filled his halfway or a third or whatever, and he was not colorblind, normal color vision. And based on the differences that male and female physiology and et cetera, it's not surprising that the women were better at this than the guy. But then me, colorblind, I had like 4 raspberries, and I was just getting so frustrated because I tried to, like, I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to try hard at something, I want to be good at it.
Right.
So I was like, okay, fine. I'm colorblind, like no worries. Like I got this. I look for the patterns. I was trying so hard, man. I got literally, maybe it wasn't 4. It was fewer than 10 raspberries, man.
Yeah.
And they had like dozens and dozens, and I just felt. Anyways, so doing new experiences was fun. I think you have to be very intentional with your time. If you go on autopilot and you don't plan ahead and you don't think what you want to spend your time doing, and now you're just on Instagram or you're just watching TV, you're going to be so much more miserable than if you're actually proactive and say, okay, I need to go out and do this thing that has a little bit of an activation energy, a little bit of friction to do it, but once I'm doing it, I'm so grateful that I am.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So I think the same thing, building on what you said. For me, I realized keeping my physical body healthy is very important because it affects my mental state. So staying active, working out when I have free time. And then the other thing for me that I'm big on is like family and friends. So seeing family and friends, even if it's just like a quick conversation, something like that, playing video games or whatever, just to chit chat with the boys, something like that, just to de-stress. Those things are important to me. So that's what I use for my whenever I do have free time, which is limited. Or, I'm here today. We did some fun stuff around the track.
Was it fun for you though?
It was fun up until the first braking zone. Yeah.
Poor guy was traumatized. I was laughing at the very end. I was like, hey man, how you doing? You're like, that was the scariest thing in my life. And I laughed because oh haha, that's funny.
Yeah.
And then you weren't laughing. You're just like, and I was like, oh shit. Like, are you okay?
At that point, I was just trying not to vomit. I was just holding it back. I was like using all my energy. I was like, oh, do not throw up. Do not throw up.
It's a good learning experience for me too as a driving instructor.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
I've had fewer than, I haven't had hundreds of people ride with me passenger. It's been like a dozen or two. So
Right.
it's like, I'm still learning too.
Yeah, of course. What about you?
Yeah, so free time, I feel like free time is when, because you have time outside of school, but when you actually have free time is when you get all your other stuff out of the way, like apps and UWorld and all that stuff. So with it, I tried to...
Are you saying that you spend your free time doing apps in UWorld?
Yes. 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 And so, so when I have free time, you have to de-stress, you have to find an outlet, and it can't be like medically related. It has to be something, like you said, that activates another part of your brain. So for me, it's usually a social activity, because I feel like medical school is kind of, especially pre-clinical, is very isolating. And so for me, it's doing stuff with friends, like either going out, just something
Car
simple.
stuff,
Car
meets,
car
canyon
meets, track days, also just playing video games. It has to be like with friends, and I think that sort of helps me. It's a support system in a way, because they kind of can help me like release some stress, and I can kind of vent about how my day's been and all that. I had a girlfriend for a while during my preclinical years, and also I would see her all the time. And that's another. We also would just kind of do new things together, just check out just random stuff, kind of like you with your previous relationship as well. And so
For sure.
that stuff really keeps you keeps you going and helps you with the grind.
After quitting medicine, do you feel like you wasted time doing medicine with all the studying that you had to do?
Not really, because I'm using it today. So I'm using the actual knowledge part with regards to, like, on my personal channel, I'm doing a lot of experimentation. I'm learning pretty deeply about things with metabolic health or fitness, zone 2 training, et cetera, fasting. So there is, having that foundation of medical knowledge is very helpful there. But more importantly and more applicably to my larger business is the whole medical training process. So with Med School Insiders and with MEM, we're helping people ace the MCAT. With Med School Insiders, we're helping tutor for both MCAT and USMLE and any of the other tests in med school or pre-med. And also with admissions consulting, helping people get into med school or into residency. So to do that most effectively, you have to go through the process yourself. There are companies where the person is a PhD and they call themselves Dr. So-and-so, and they are very, they mislead people, and they never went to med school. The quality of that work is going to suffer, because if you have not gone through, if you have not served on admissions committees, if you don't know the actual process, the ins and outs, you're not going to know. So even like Med School Insiders would never have been as successful unless I went through the process, because even that very first video, the video today is like over 700,000 views despite having garbage production quality, because it speaks to the quality of the content. And the quality of the content was the culmination of 10 plus years of grinding my face off. So it's only by learning that and distilling that. That's how Med School Insiders grew. The YouTube channel grew in the way that it did, and the business, the website grew in the way that it did as well. So I don't think it's definitely not wasted at all.
All right, so you want to hear the fun question?
Let's do it.
So how much does it annoy you when people ask whether you regret leaving plastics?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask about my ethnicity. I guess we'll get to that next. It doesn't annoy me. I do find it amusing, though, because when I first made that announcement video, it was a big splash, right? I don't know if there were other people on YouTube who had made similar videos, but I know when I first made it, like, it got a lot of attention, a lot of comments, a lot of people reaching out to me. And I think it challenged a lot of people's values, because, hey, if this guy is walking away from something that many of us, myself included, work very hard to get to, then what does that say about what I'm working so hard to work towards? Is it not as good? Is it not as important? Is it not as valuable? And I don't think that's the case. I mean, in that video, I go over why I just had two good options, and this, the entrepreneurship pulled me harder. It's not that I didn't like plastics, but I do find it amusing, and it's kind of like the cost of that decision of being open about it, because there are many people, like I know, Ali Abdal makes great content. I think he waited like 2 years after he stopped doing anything medical before he released his announcement video. I was like very quick after. I know that there are some other, these people have said it publicly, but they don't highlight it. They kind of have just said it in passing. One has told me personally, one has said it on another podcast. Very large followings. The smaller of them has like a couple 100K followers on Instagram as an example. And the other one has like, is way bigger than that. They're both in surgical subspecialties. They both left residency, before finishing, and they don't really publicize it. People can just kind of assume that they finished. So it's kind of like, it's just there's pros and cons to the decision. And I don't know if it's necessarily a con that I get asked that a lot, because it doesn't like bother me. I think it's a good spark for a healthy discussion about very important things like values and how you see your life moving forward. Because I know when I was in my 20s and even in my teens, you feel like you're gonna live forever, and you just you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna grind, and I don't mind working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, and that's not a problem. And now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, oh my god, I didn't realize that my 30s would feel so much different than my mid 20s, because I feel young, but I also feel like old at the same time. I feel that my priorities have changed, and I do like really prioritizing my exercise and sleep and nutrition and all those things, which wouldn't have been possible if I was pursuing plastic surgery.
So another kind of follow-up question I saw was, do you think there will ever be like no stigma for residents that drop out and want to reapply, or do you think there's like any way for them to kind of get back?
Oh, you can definitely go back. It depends on your specialty. So I think like with plastics, I can't say this for certain, but it would be near impossible, right? Because if they have a lot of qualified candidates, then why would they ever choose me when it's like, hey, you're a flight risk. You've already, left once. And by the way, that this is a hypothetical. I don't actually have any interest in returning. There's other things that I'm working on right now. I like my new lifestyle, etc. But yeah, it kind of depends on your specialty. It depends on the reasons why you left, how long you left. If it's a longer period of time versus a shorter period of time, that's going to be more challenging. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can go down another level. Well, not like residency, but like I kind of see this not more often than I would like to admit. But I've seen like some people like kind of struggle with medical school itself, and to the point where they might not even like move on and get dropped out of med school, and they have to basically reapply to med school again. Like, what sort of advice would you give to those people that kind of have gone to that place and need to get back on their feet?
Yeah, so the attrition rate in medical school in the U.S. at USMD programs is, it changes every year, but it's like 3-5%, something like that, right? So every year there's several, there's a lot of people, because if you have, is it 20,000 new USMD students every year, something like that, and you take 3 to 5% of that, that's a substantial portion, right? So first of all, understand that you're not alone. This is not a terribly uncommon thing.
Yeah.
It's not the norm, but it's not terribly uncommon. And tough things are going to happen to you in life, whether that's failing medical school, whether that's family issues, whether that's health issues, whether that's financial issues, whatever comes up, things will happen. And the fact that something happens isn't nearly as important as how you respond to it. So if you're the kind of person who says, okay, look, I didn't pass this block, I have to repeat a year or whatever it is, if you approach that in a way that says, hey, I'm going to learn and grow and be stronger and overcome this, that's going to have a completely different life trajectory and reality, even in that moment, versus saying, I'm a failure, I suck, I hate myself, and just pitting yourself and going down the spiral. So same starting situation, but completely opposite directions and completely opposite trajectories. That's the biggest thing. Simple as that.
Do you think those people should, like, you know, some people like kind of transition to like a different program, like just not physician programs altogether, like a PA program or something like that? Do you think that's like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to depend on, that's such a personal question.
Okay.
It's hard to really have a blanket statement. It's like, you know, if for some people, they may change their priorities and understanding the cost of medicine, they may say, you know what, yeah, you know, doing this other alternate healthcare path is okay. And for other people, like, hey, you know what, no, I'm gonna get back up and learn from my mistakes, and I'm gonna get this done right the second time.
I think a good follow-up question to that, since we're on the topic already, someone asked, would you say medicine has become an overhyped career and lost many of its pros?
I definitely think that medicine is overhyped, but I don't think it's a bad profession. I said this many times on my channel, which I think is best summed up by saying, if you had 100 students, 100 pre-med students that want to become physicians, 75, or, you know, what the exact number is, I don't know, but let's say 75 out of 100 would be very happy being physicians, but 25 of them would not. And the question is figuring out, are you part of the 75 or the 25? And that's what we try to do with Med School Insiders and this channel. It's like, you know, so you want to be, day in the life, the realities of medicine, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's still a great profession. I mean, things have changed versus a few decades ago. Some for the better, some for the worse. I actually do think, you know, EMRs are largely negative in that they are increasing rates of burnout. There's more excess charting and, you know, focus on billing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it's pretty awesome that you can check imaging from a computer and you don't have to, you know, go to radiology every time.
Or request records from so-and-so and wait months and months.
Yeah, so it's, you know, there's a lot of issues with EMRs, but you know, there's pros and cons to a lot of the changes in medicine. I think that people should spend a lot of time to first determine whether or not it's the right career for them. And then once they do determine that, then, you know, commit to it, full steam ahead. But until then, you know, make sure, like, so many of us make that decision when we're teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. At 18, 17, 18 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of bizarre that you put so much weight on like a 10 plus year sort of schooling career at such a young age. I think the emphasis on having more gap years now is a little more, makes a lot more sense now that I've gone through it myself. I think it was good to get like some real like meaty work experience in like a clinical fields and like a field that's not specifically medicine but sort of in the same realm. And I think through that experience working for a couple of years, I realized, you know, there was something that was still like, I was still kind of aching for, yearning for a little bit. And I think that was when I kind of realized, yeah, like this is ready, this is what my commitment means, and like I'm ready to apply to med school, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think the same thing. If you're not absolutely certain about whether med school is the right choice for you, I would definitely invest in a gap year or two, however much time you need to make that decision. So this one's actually going to be kind of relevant. I don't know if you want to discuss your future, what's going to happen, but do you think military physicians are competent compared to their civilian counterparts?
All I'm going to say about military physicians is, in the next few months, we're going to have some dedicated videos. They're going to be very exciting, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. Man of mystery.
You know what's coming up, but
I do.
we're gonna
You know the
we're gonna
vibes.
keep it under wraps for now.
Keep them guessing.
Yeah,
All right.
click that notification bell and subscribe to Kevin Jubbal MB. Please like and comment and share to your friends.
First one that's not medicine related. Are you married?
I'm single, ready to mingle.
So if you hit that subscribe button and like the video, you can slide in this guy's DMs.
I will say that I'm not opposed to getting married. I think that what I've learned living in Vegas is that it's a little bit harder for me to find a more serious partner. I think Vegas is very transient. I think that it's been a little bit, it's like Vegas seems to be more tailored, at least in my experience, because I'm sure that many people say like, hey, this is totally not their experience. In my experience, it's a little bit more tailored for casual dating or shorter flings.
Yeah.
And like in California, after X number of dates, whatever that number is, 1 or 2 of those people I would want to pursue seriously.
Yeah.
And in Vegas, it's like 5x or 10x for me to get that 1 or 2 people that I'd want to pursue seriously. It's a lot harder to find that for me personally.
Yeah.
Which maybe is because I'm from California, so then I vibe more
Better
with
with-
certain kind of personalities and interests and et cetera. And then maybe Vegas is different because different industries versus California, and I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but yeah, I'm totally down to get married once I mean, first I gotta find a girlfriend. So,
Step 1, right?
Step
baby,
1.
Baby steps. Baby steps. Let's see. Another demographic question. How old are you?
32.
32. All right.
ASL?
I think our crowd's too young for that.
I'm
Yeah.
aging myself.
You're aging yourself big time.
I'm at the tail end of knowing that
Yeah.
reference. So what's it like living in Nevada?
Yeah.
Nevada is Vegas specifically, right? Because
Yeah.
I haven't lived in Reno,
Right.
Tahoe. Vegas is, you always have friends visiting, which is a lot of fun. You have incredible food. It's essentially LA level food, which I know is like, what? No, it's LA level food at cheaper prices. I've had friends visit from LA, from the Bay, from all over, who come here and we go to some, decent restaurants, and they're like, how are these guys in business if this omakase is $80 and it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's amazing in that way. Airport is fantastic. You can fly to a lot of places very cheaply, very conveniently. A lot of flights all the time, which I love. Proximity to my family in California is fantastic. The weather is, I prefer dry. I mean, I've been to the East Coast when it's humid and hot. I don't like that. Some people, the heat bothers them more than others. It doesn't bother me as much. I just get my cycling done in the morning. It's a good place to live. Is it perfect? No, but no place is.
So you don't feel like you have to change your lifestyle to adapt to the environment. You can feel like you kind of supported your current lifestyle.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I still cycle. I just gotta, during the summer, cycle early in the morning, around sunrise.
Would you say it's like a second home now, or?
This is definitely my home. I mean, yeah, it's where I grew up is the Bay Area, and I did all my training, my college, med school, residency, all in SoCal. But this is my home now. It's been my home since 2019.
Any plans of ever leaving or moving back to California, or you think you're going to be here for a very long time?
I'll be here for a long time. I do like San Diego a lot, but I'm not sure what kind of relationship I'm going to have with San Diego. Will I just visit now and then, or if I do eventually move? I don't know yet.
I know there's a lot of good things about Vegas, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But like, what drew you to like Vegas of all places? Like, what was the?
Mostly the strippers and the cocaine.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Next question.
Cocaine and hookers, my friend.
What's your skincare routine?
Is that an audience question or
It's an audience question, yeah.
Skincare routine. We're gonna be doing what I learned about dermatology or skincare, rather, coming up. But essentially, it's like clean the face with a gentle cleanser. When I was younger, I used to like, oh, my face is oily, I gotta strip it of all my oils. And I later learned that, oh, your skin is secreting a lot of oils because it's so dry. So a gentle cleanser. I use Retin-A every night, and moisturizer and sunscreen during the day. Simple as that.
Nice. I just use body wash.
I actually
the
use
5-in-1.
5-in-1,
I actually
baby.
use a 13-in-1. It actually doubles as like peanut butter and jelly as well.
And also motor oil too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I use.
Yeah, I've
I
seen
actually
that one.
use Liquid Moly Most 2. If you want to use that, it's a really good moisturizer.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You heard it here.
Yeah, I'm not sponsored by Liquid Moly. Don't. This is a disclaimer.
Next question.
The age-old question that keeps popping up. What is your ethnicity?
How many questions did we get about my ethnicity?
Like 17.
I don't know if it was that many. I'm Antarctican. Next question.
Antarctican. Interesting.
It's a very rich
Tell us
culture.
a time you got punished as a kid.
Actually, no, my favorite comment in a long time was I have this video of me dancing at my buddy's wedding on Instagram, and this guy's like, Antarctican culture is so rich, and then with the like the very watery eyes, like he's like so touched.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, this is such gold, bro. I lost it. So kudos to that guy.
Tell us a time you got punished as a kid.
Oh, dude, I got punished all the time. What were the reasons? I don't even remember the reasons. I just remember just when you're young, in my culture, you get hit. It's not a big deal. I don't mean to normalize it. It's like kind of, you know, what I think happens in a lot of immigrant families.
Right.
Yeah, I misbehave. I think I'm the kind of person that's always been less agreeable. Like, I'm willing to speak my mind, and I'm not afraid of confrontation if I think that it's necessary. I'm not seeking it out, but like, you know, I speak my mind. I think now as I've gotten older, I've become a little bit more like, okay, let's be a little more tactful.
Yeah.
But especially as a kid, I was pretty blunt. Yeah. So you get punished, you get beat, you get put in timeout, depending on your age. I mean, at a certain age, like your mom hits you, and then you're kind of like, wait, was that supposed to hurt? And like, you know, you're like taller than your mom. You're like, this is kind of awkward. So, but yeah. Okay, I was actually very good in the sense of academics. Like, I remember my mom, maybe my brother was in 4th or 5th grade. She told him like, hey, try harder in school. You got to get good grades, no C's, only A's and B's. And then for me, I'm in 3rd grade. She'd come over to me and like, okay, Kevin, you don't always have to be number one. Like, it's okay. Calm down, chill out. Just like, it's fine.
Yeah.
So like, that's just who I've always been.
Yeah.
So like student wise, I've always been pretty strong in school and such. But outside of that, I wasn't, you know, I would ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Do you feel like those experiences like help shape you as a person? Do you feel like it helped teach you discipline, or do you feel like it's sort of an antiquated sort of parenting style that won't really kind of exist moving forward with our generations?
Like, would my parents disciplining me give me more self-discipline now?
Like, did that give you self-discipline as a child? And do you think that's a sort of a parenting style that actually has some effectiveness, or like
basically, I think you're saying like, do you think it worked well enough to help you get you where you are today?
It's really hard to say because there's nature and nurture, and I think the parenting style, one parenting style may work for one kid and it may not work for another. I'm very grateful for the experiences that I've had, and I like where it's placed me and what I've learned, and et cetera, et cetera. Whether it was the best or whether there were mistakes, like, I mean, there were definitely mistakes. Whether it was the best parenting style, I don't know. But I think that having some hardship, having something to not always get in your way, understanding that the world is a difficult place, those are good lessons to learn when you're young. To realize that, I mean, I remember my first job too. This is less about discipline, but just like the discomfort and the frustration of like being a library aide in high school was pretty annoying as a job. I worked there for 6-7 months until I could save up and buy a laptop. But I remember that some of the rules that were arbitrary just seemed so silly. Like, I would listen to headphones, like, oh, you can't listen to headphones because the patrons may ask you questions. And I was like, okay, cool. So then they would ask me questions and I would answer them. And they said, oh no, you're not allowed to answer the questions. You need to just redirect them to the librarian desk. And I was like, well, then can I have one headphone in so I can hear them and then just like reroute them? And like, no, you can't do that either. So I see where they're coming from, but I remember just as a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old, however old I was, being so frustrated and being like, this is dumb. I don't like this at all. And as soon as I had enough money for that laptop, I just like quit. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. But that's important, right? I'm learning to do things that I don't want to necessarily do as a means to an end.
Right.
And you have to do those things to build the skill set, to build the discipline and et cetera, so that eventually, well, part of it is also knowing what you like. So I was like, okay, I like being my own boss, so I don't have to do, nonsense that I disagree with. And part of it too is learning that, if you want that laptop, okay, put in the 6 months of work and you may not like it, but you're going to get that result in the end. Delayed gratification.
Right. It's a means to an end, not a means in itself.
Not an end in and of itself.
Correct.
So it's like, I don't think that you want to approach your life always doing things as a means to an end. Ideally, you want to do more autotelic activities. More autotelic meaning they are an end in and of themselves. But you can't just do that. Well, most people can't just do it at the age of 16 or 18 or 20. Like, you need to build some foundation so that eventually you can start a car YouTube channel and just be like, you know what? I just love doing car YouTube and I'm going to make some money off of this eventually and whatever. Like, this can be a business.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. I mean, I'm already flying to press events and driving press cars, and it's so much fun. Like, right now I'm losing money because I have to pay my team and my editors and like my content guy, et cetera, et cetera. But eventually, like, I'll probably make it a profitable business, and I'm doing what I truly love, just driving cars, the snot out of them, reviewing them, connecting with, like-minded people, making amazing friends.
So what got you into cars?
I don't know.
Do you know what age?
Some of my earliest memories, I was 3 years old.
Okay.
I was obsessed with cars. I remember my dad got me like some little toy cars, and I asked my granddad to teach me how to draw cars in grade school, in elementary and middle school, and high school. I was known as the kid that would draw cars, and I would sell my drawings to kids until the teacher got mad and be like, hey, you can't do that, and then I had to stop. Just always been into cars. Played Gran Turismo 1 through 5. Now I have a sim rig, downstairs. Like, I go to the racetrack whenever I can. Yeah, I've tried to understand what it is. Is it the freedom? Is it the art? Is it the beauty? Is it the excitement? Maybe it's everything. I don't know.
Combination of all those things together, yeah.
There's so much to it that
I think there's a very tactile response that you get to it, along with sort of the emotional aspect. Sort of, you get stimulated from like the sounds, the sights, the smells, the reactions after it's riding passenger. So that sort of stuff is, I think, really unique to that experience.
True.
And I think that's why, like you, I also grew up playing Gran Turismo, and I still play Gran Turismo to this day, and I have a full sim rig. And I always feel a little self-conscious about sharing that I have a car hobby, because I feel like it's
considered like anti-social in a way. Like you're weird for liking cars.
I've never felt that way.
You don't feel that way?
And I just rock it.
I don't know.
It's just who I am. I've always loved it, and it's changed over the years.
I think it has.
I mean, for the way that I experience it, it used to be about drawing cars and just like the aesthetics and the beauty.
Yeah.
And then it was about like understanding the power and the spec sheets. And then it was about knowing more about the engineering and the suspension geometry and things like that, which is kind of the same phase as now, which is about how it actually drives.
Yeah.
And the cars that I thought were cool when I was 15 are not the cars I think that are cool now, because I've driven them. I'm fortunate to have driven a lot of different cars, and ultimately it's what you enjoy being behind the wheel of. And BMW M2 was my attainable dream car, and then I drove one and I was like, this ain't it.
Yeah.
This ain't it.
All right, so next question. So advice for building up resiliency to overcome obstacles versus just giving up.
That is a tough one. I think resiliency, I can speak to my experience, which is that when you fall down, you realize you have one of two options. One is you get up and you try to fix things and you try to work at it. And number two is you give up and you say, okay, I'm done with this. So that is a much easier thing to decide when things are very challenging, when things hit the fan. If you stub your toe or you break a glass or whatever, it's harder to see things through that lens. But when you hit your own rock bottom, when you fail out of medical school, or when you get a family member has a health issue or passes away or something like that, it's a lot easier to then see that, wow, I have these two options. And that gives some clarity. The other thing too is, I think it's very important. I've maintained this for years and years on Med School Insiders and this channel too. I don't like the whole fake it till you make it advice, because I think it breeds imposter syndrome. And part of resiliency, not all of it, but part of it is belief in yourself. And that belief in yourself is much easier to build by doing hard things. So that doesn't mean that you get up and you climb Everest tomorrow. No, you slowly work up. So you build this ever growing, it's not Everest, but you're building towards a mountain like Everest of evidence of work, of things that you've done in the past that says, hey, I can handle this. So you slowly do harder and harder things, and sometimes you're gonna fail. But by doing these things that get harder and harder each time, sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't, you're teaching yourself and reminding yourself that, hey, I can handle this. And I can do more than I expected. And even if I fail, it's okay.
All right, so next question. How do I get out of a pessimistic mindset?
Actually, I'm not sure how to get out of a pessimistic mindset. I'm trying to think to the times when I was down and what got me out of that. I think journaling has provided a lot of insight, because you can have certain thoughts, certain repeating loops in your head, but once you write it down, you're forced to confront them and have these logical steps. And if there is a logical inconsistency, you're forced to face it and address it. So I think when you're being pessimistic and you kind of write it on paper and you kind of see how things, you're like, wait, I should be grateful for X, Y, and Z. Like let's say you do a gratitude practice, which is something that I generally do most mornings. You're forced to face that, hey, life's pretty good, right? Or I can't quite be as pessimistic about this thing as I initially was. So that's one thing. I think reaching out to family and friends for support. I remember I was trying to hit certain business milestones, and we have very aggressive business milestones because I don't know, I've always been maybe it's something I want to address in the future, but always been kind of like very aggressive and kind of having a very high standard. And one of my good friends from med school kind of gave me some perspective, and I think that was very helpful to bring some positivity and remind me that, hey, I should be grateful for a lot of these things, and even though I'm focusing on I'm here and I want to get up here, like, don't forget that you started here and now you're all the way up here. And that's pretty insane. That's something to be proud of. And he was using it in the context of, like, you know, what you have accomplished and what has been done from here to here is already fantastic. And the fact that you did it while also having to battle a chronic digestive illness, IBD, is like, dude, kudos. Like, you should be proud of that. And I was like, you know, I haven't actually thought of that. I can't remember the last time I ever thought of that. It's been years. And having a good friend like that was very helpful to kind of snap me out of this, like, oh, you know, I need to, like, why am I not here yet? And be more grateful for what I do have.
Yeah, to help, like, recenter you and, like, keep you grounded. And yeah,
I do appreciate.
It's very easy to, like, look up the mountain,
Oh,
how
yeah.
far you still want to go, and then not even look down to be like how far you've come.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, you know, there's been more of a push to help mental health nowadays, and I'm glad that, you know, people are now being more open about things that they're struggling with. And I totally agree with you. Having a support system is honestly one of the biggest things that can really help you get out of a tight situation or any tough time in life, really. And so you'd be surprised how opening up to friends and family that you never thought to open up before can really help you get through these tough times, because, you know, they know you better than you know yourself sometimes. They can see things that you can't see, and so they can help you through the situation. And so, you know, always know that someone has you. You always have friends, you always have family, and don't be afraid to just open up to them if you can. So this is gonna be more about your current about your current business, but what are your next goals? How is life treating you, and what are you struggling with?
That's a good question. Next goals. How is life treating me? I think life is pretty good, man. I've had a rough last few, like, the beginning of 2023 has been a little rough health-wise. My IBD has been so well managed for several years, and for whatever reason, things have been acting up, and it's getting better again now. But it was, you know, the days when you have to go over a dozen times to the bathroom and you're in a lot of pain, it's so frustrating, and you're like, oh my God, why am I dealing with this? And it definitely got me down. But then again, refocusing, taking care of my body, taking care of my health, prioritizing that, talking to friends and family, addressing, like, I try a lot of different things based on the literature with regards to helping control my disease. The biggest thing has just been literally sleep, exercise, and eating well. But then occasionally things will still act up. So, you know, I'm on BPC 157 right now. I mean, speak to your physician. This is not medical advice, information purposes only. I'm on BPC 157. I'm on vitamin D supplementation. I'm on different probiotics right now. And all these things seem to be helping. So other parts of the question were my goals.
Yeah, goals.
And what was the other thing?
What are you struggling with?
What
your
am
goals and what are you struggling with?
Goals and what am I struggling with? I have a few business goals with regards to growth metrics and things like that for both Med School Insiders and for MEM, and also for the car channel. And hiring a team there, like, we've been hiring a lot. We've hired a lot of people this year, and also, like, we're hiring more people for our MCAT course. So if you've done well in the MCAT and you want to help create and finish up our course, then we do have an application page. A lot of the goals that I have right now professionally are related to growth within each of these businesses. I had a goal for my car YouTube channel, which was to get access to press cars before the end of the year, and then it happened in February. Like, we got access to Mazda, and I was like, this is awesome. Okay, the new goal is like a second brand, and now we're going to like press events. We did one in Texas, and now we're doing one in Minnesota. So that's been super exciting. Also, like fitness goals. As I'm now in my 30s, I used to always just cycle to and from med school or to the hospital when I was in residency, and my cardio wasn't ever amazing, but it was never really a problem. And now I'm caring more about comparing myself to others, not in the sense that, I mean, you shouldn't compare yourself to others to hold yourself to like, hey, I need to be number one. But okay, if I'm at the 25th percentile for people of my age, that's a problem. Actually, speaking of which, in terms of, there's various power metrics in cycling based on how much power you can sustain for a period of time. So FTP, functional threshold power, is how much power can you sustain for 1 hour? And among men in my age, I'm at like the 40th percentile. Out of those who are cyclists, though, so like not untrained
Like
individuals.
professional cyclists?
No, just like cyclists, like hobbyists.
Okay.
You know, very varying degrees. Sure, some are going to be like really high end, but a lot of just like normal people like me, just hobbyists, mostly hobbyists. And being on the lower end of that has made me think like, okay, what do I actually want? Like, what's attainable? I don't need to be 99th percentile in cycling, but okay, I'd like to be at least 75th. I'd like to be 90th on certain metrics too. So I'm looking at things like my HRV, my resting heart rate. Those are like nice things to show me the direction. But in terms of comparing myself to the population, I'm looking at my DEXA scan. In terms of my total muscle mass, looking at things like my body fat, how much muscle is on my actual axial skeleton. There's all these different things you can look at that indicate health, right? Or that tend to have more favorable outcomes long term. So both with cardiovascular health and with strength training, you know, I wear a CGM. I'm trying to optimize that, my metabolic health. So all those things, I have a lot of personal goals around health and such, and I'm trying to be a good influence on my family. I'm very grateful that my mom and brother have both started prioritizing their own health, and got my mom a CGM, and she's been using that, and it's been very helpful. And they're both exercising much more than they used to, and they're holding each other accountable, which is fantastic. I'd love to see that. Okay, what I'm struggling with right now is it is like quarter life crisis stuff, and seeing like my mom get older, and like I can't fight or slow down that aging process. I mean, I guess I can help slow down the aging process. I can't stop it, and I have gotten, I mean, this is kind of happened over the last few years, but now that I'm seeing my mom age more, like, it just like, even, so she's in her 60s, in her mid 60s, but like just seeing, you know, you're seeing more grays, seeing more wrinkles, like just, you're just more aware of the aging process. It just reminds you, like, you know, the finiteness of life, mortality of yourself and your loved ones. I think for a lot of us, like, we're more afraid of our loved ones passing than ourselves, because like, you know, that's, so I get on her case, and she's called me a drill sergeant like many times over the last few years. She's like, okay, drill sergeant, like, I'll exercise more. Okay, drill sergeant, I'll eat fewer sugars and whatever. And I'm very grateful that my brother now has also begun prioritizing that, because he gets on her and he's like, hey, like, don't you want to see my grandkid, like, or your grandkids, like my kids and all that stuff. And like, he's trying to keep her motivated, and he has his own way of kind of doing that, and I have my own way. I'm a little bit more like, you know, disciplined, drill sergeant, whatever, and he's a little bit more like, you know, in his way. So I am trying to, so that's one thing that I've thought a lot more about in the last 2 years. And then the other thing is like, okay, now that I am aware of that, what am I going to do about it? And it's like, ever since 2020, or maybe it was 2019, I made this pact, like, hey, we're going to go on a family vacation every year. Me, my mom, my brother. And we went to Seattle in 2019, and then 2020, COVID, and 2021. And, you know, I wanted to do domestic trips, but they're a little bit more, they're less risk tolerant than I am. And they're like, hey, no, like, we want to stay in and like avoid traveling, avoid hotels. And now this year, I'd like to actually go on a trip, but then it's also like, I'm very busy with trying to build the businesses. So then it's like, okay, how do you how do you prioritize? Like, how do you balance? Like, I want to do both. I want to have the time to spend time with my family and go on these trips because time is so precious. And yet I also want to have the time. And that kind of, it pushes me back to the whole, like, okay, be super efficient and effective and disciplined with your time. And work hard, play hard. So like, go to the racetrack, enjoy it a lot, then work really hard Monday through Friday, and sometimes on the weekends too, and then make the time so that you can go on vacation with your family. So like, that's the thing right now that I'm struggling with, is like mortality. And I know that I'm in my early 30s, which is not that old, but like, my mom's getting old, and this is part of life. We all go through it, and when you're younger, you don't really think about it. And I'm at the age where I'm starting to think about it a lot.
Well, I mean, okay, so Naban's 20, he's 30, but I'm 27, and I mean, it's starting to creep in a little bit. Like, I still feel very young at heart, but I think I'm starting to realize now, like, you know, as you get older, you get a lot more opportunities to do stuff, and like, you're getting a lot more access to things you never were able to before that you really were eager to as you were younger. But what you can never get back is time, right? So I think that's kind of the like the sad thing about it, and I guess the irony. And so
yeah, that's actually a big one, like for me too, that I have worked through for the last several years, because growing up very financially strapped, scarcity mindset with money, and then, you know, started the business, started doing okay, paid off my loans, et cetera, and it took me so long to start spending money on things to make myself happy, and not just like, oh, like, is this really necessary? Is this really necessary? Buying a new car, tracking it all the time, you know, beating the living out of it. Part of the reason I like driving my Toyota is because I know that it's cheap enough that I'm not going to care about it. It's a $30,000 car, brand new, and I will beat it to death. And like, it was during COVID that I was like, why do I try to be so precious about my cars? Why not? I mean, these are material objects that I'm not taking with me. These are tools to bring me joy.
Yes.
Right.
And then acknowledging how material possessions are not meant to last forever, acknowledging how you got to enjoy your youth, has made me, I'm still frugal, I'm still responsible with finances and such, but it's made me much more willing to spend in a way that is going to bring me more joy, or, you know, bring me more convenience, or like, I'm much more willing to spend in an intelligent way and not be like, okay, no, can't waste money, can't buy sparkling water because sparkling water is like $1.50 per bottle, and I can just drink from the tap, and from the tap it's like a couple cents. Like, no, I enjoy my sparkling water. I'm gonna drink my Topo Chico, all right?
You change from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Ever burnt your clutch, or what are your worst car oopsies?
The biggest thing that I feel very stupid about, I've done many stupid things, but the biggest thing is at my very first track day, I did the pedal dance at my 2013 Scion FRS.
Can you explain what the pedal dance is to the viewers?
The pedal dance is like this thing that you do when you first start the car that completely disables all the nannies. So no traction control, no stability control, completely disabled. Normally in most cars, when you hold the button, it like partially disables it. So they had this workaround way. You had to like pull the handbrake 3 times, then hit the brake 3 times in succession 4 separate times. So like, it was this whole like kind of like a controller cheat code with the old video games. So it was very like intent, like you were being very intentional to do this. And I used to do that all the time at autocross. Autocross is imagine a huge parking lot with a track made out of cones. So the worst thing is if you spin or you lose control, you hit a cone, not a big deal. My very first track day was at Laguna Seca, and Laguna Seca has walls, lots and lots of walls. And I did the pedal dance because when you're trying to become a better driver and improve your driver skill, you don't want nanny saving you. You want to learn how to deal with the car and understand what's happening and control it, and etc. So on my very first track day, I did the pedal dance every single time I went out. And I also had very old heat cycle tires that were also dry rotting from the Vegas sun. They were terrible, like they had no grip. They would just give away. And long story short, I was sliding all around Laguna Seca, and going down the corkscrew, I almost ate shit. I was going like, actually we'll play the video right now. it could have ended so much worse. I had track insurance that day. In case something did happen, I would pay a $2,000 deductible and, you know, I'd be made whole again. But still, that's a whole thing that you want to avoid if possible. And afterwards, at the end of the day, my instructor was like, wait, you disabled traction control? Like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Wait, why are you doing that? This is your first track day. You should not be doing that at your first track day. And I was like, oh. So like, it only occurred to me after all that had happened, because I thought like the rule, right? The right way to do things was to always disable traction control to be a better driver.
Right.
And in hindsight, what I should have done is left it on for the first few track days, and then as I got comfortable, then partially disable it, and then fully disable it. And nowadays, I mean, now I'm always fully disabled, but should not have done that at the first track day. That could have ended so much worse. As for burning a clutch, the first time I started driving stick, I could definitely smell the clutch. Yeah, like there was times when I was like, "Oh, that's not good," but that's normal. So that first clutch of mine lasted 80,000 miles, and then the throwout bearing failed. It's not like the clutch went out, but the throwout bearing failed, which is a known problem in the FRS. So it's one of those things that if you are intentional and you watch my videos on how to drive stick shift, then you'll be fine. You'll be set.
I have some stories as well. So in case you don't know, I have a 2018 Mazda MX-5 that Kevin so graciously reviewed a couple months ago.
Both on the Canyon and on the track.
Yes,
Two
he did.
videos.
Yes, so
thank you for letting me review that. It was a lot of fun.
Of course. Yeah, it was a lovely time.
I also rode passenger when he was driving on track, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah, he had kind of experience that Naban had.
Completely different, though. It was completely different. Naban thought he was going to die because I was driving very fast. I thought I was going to die with Nafal for a totally different reason. Different reason.
That's just because, I just brake very late because I just got some new brakes and,
Did I ever overcook a turn?
No.
Overcooking a turn is when you go too far into the turn because you braked too late. Nafal overcooked many turns. If you overcook a turn, you run the risk of running past the track and hitting whatever is on the other side of that turn. That's why I thought I was going to die. So I actually served as Nafal's instructor, and I was like, time out, bring it back to the pits. We're not doing this. Like, I was like, we got to discipline Nafal before, we do any of that.
And I don't want to dissuade anyone from like not tracking their car, because the thing is, like, most tracks, like, you can go off the track, but most of the time it's like dirt and rocks and stuff. Obviously, you don't want to go off.
Most people on their first, when they're beginners, you're not told beginner. You're like, you've done a few, right?
Yeah, I've done like...
Most people when they're starting off are going to be extra cautious. Mm-hmm. You're just a very confident driver.
Yes. I mean, this is like my 8th and 9th track day, so, I'm in the solid intermediate group, just to be concerned. But yeah, you get more confident, and sometimes you get too confident, and so you kind of just push your car way too much, and you have to reel it back in. I think this is kind of the thing that happens when you track your car. You just learn a lot more about it, and so you have to be careful not to let your I think they call it the red mist is what I heard today, and just not get so far like too overconfident, and you have to make sure to put that all in your back pocket and have some humility when you're on track. But I highly encourage anyone to go on track if they have a car. It doesn't matter what car it is, Honda Accord, if it's a Camry SC Sleeper Edition.
That's that was a great video. That video launched today.
That's by far my favorite video you've ever done. It's a fantastic car.
Thank you.
I hope you...
It was both me and Fenton Sun from the Zygreen YouTube channel. It was a joint comparison, and it was nothing but straight factual.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know you already put a deposit down for a Camry Sleeper Edition, so I'm really excited to see that.
SE stands for Sleeper Edition, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so, definitely come track your car. It's very safe. Like, compared to the street, there's no comparison. And so, you can drive like a total idiot like I did, or be a maniac and be extremely fast like Kevin, but no matter what, it's always safe. Everyone comes home fine. The only thing that gets bruised is your ego, and so I highly encourage everyone to come out. It's a great way to get into cars, and it's a great crowd.
All right, and that's a wrap for today's AMA. Big thanks to Nashal. Big thanks to Nafal and Naban for joining me today on this episode. If you guys have any questions that you want me to answer in the next episode, then leave a comment down below. Much love, my friends. Thank you all so much for watching. He has an MX-5 Instagram in case you're interested. Link below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.